So now let's turn to our featured modeler, Todd, who is an Inscale modeler. I had never seen his model railroad. I understand that he's been popular and a lot of people are familiar with him. I had never heard of him before, but I came across him and I had a modeler say, you ought to get him on the show. So he was kind enough to join us this evening. And Todd, I'm really looking forward to this. So thank you so much for being here.
I appreciate the invite, Tim. I really do. I don't know how many you're familiar with early Inscale, but what you're seeing here is the very first Inscale ever made. It was made in England in 1960 through 65. And then a few stragglers afterwards. They tried to keep the company going, but they failed. What you're seeing here is the most complete Lone Star collection in the world. I can promise you that. It's I've effortless amounts of time and traveling all over to find this stuff and help from a lot of people overseas. But this is the first Inscale ever made. Gives you some examples here on this picture, what it is, the little cars and trucks. Some of these cars and trucks will go for hundreds of dollars. It's incredible. But I've enjoyed it. I've loved it all my life. There's some Pasture Trains. The blue one on the top and the blue one on the bottom are very rare, hard to find. That's what a set looked like back in the day. This would have been from 1963-ish, something like that, and sold at the time for $19.99, which was a lot of money back then. There's a set there. This set's never been played with. It's brand new, never been out of the box. The little track and the track connector still sealed in the cellophane. Another big set. This was a deluxe set they made that gave you buildings and things like that. This was a Montgomery Ward set. Montgomery Ward's actually sold these for a few years. It was in their Christmas catalog. The box in this picture is worth more than the train. The train's very common. This is some of the buildings and things they made. There were die cast little bridges and things like that. This was the second people that made stuff at Inscale was on Torpedo. Again, early 60s into the late 60s, early 70s, a lot of this stuff came from. This is a pretty complete collection too. I am missing a few things. I need an extra Amtrak card in that space. That's why it's there. This is the mini Trix collection I have. This is every mini Trix car they ever made. And these were made by Roco actually in Austria for mini Trix in Germany. This is my Lima AHM collection. This is just about everything they made in Italy. And if you look at the cars, they're European style cars with American prototype on. American cars weren't made then. They just used the European stuff. Atlas, this is my Atlas collection. I got every car from 1968 to 1995, basically, and they started making duplicate numbers. I quit. More Atlas. My Pensy stuff, my GG1s, my Centipedes, stuff like that, a few brass. Atlas diesels mostly in this case. I know you guys are modelers. You're probably not real super interested in this, but more engines, mostly Atlas and Kato. Some other passenger sets and what have you, and Aero Train, Kato passenger trains. This is my micro trains collection. This is, I got about 8,500 micro trains cars in my collection. And in fact, Eric Smith that owns micro trains was here in the basement a few times. Another shot the other way, without the glass on. That's what you see when you come down my steps at the bottom. This is another room in the basement that has a small yard in it and more micro trains cars and what have you. Started running out of room on top, so I put them underneath. These are Pasture Trains. I got about 330 complete passenger trains. This is my foreign stuff, the French things, German, Japanese. Like that stuff too. Some people don't, but I do. And more foreign. This is a part of the layout. This is the showcases. Look in the train room. I had to put them on the wall because I ran out of space. But that's the city of Pittsburgh in the background. You'll see it here in a few minutes. Another foreign case. There's an overall picture of my layout. I think the next picture might be a little better there. That's a better shot. About 4,500 trees on here. Lots of track, lots of running room. One of the pictures of the steel mills that I worked on. That's a Walther's kit. Another shot of another peninsula with 2 trains passing there. And some of you might notice the A-10s flying over at the top.
Mm-hmm.
Another shot of Pittsburgh looking down at the steel mill and the Mon River. And then just another shot of my small intermodal facility. Of course, it's not big enough to handle much that I got there, but this was a shot that was in the centerfold of the Inscale railroading, one of the trains in it anyway. And this is my city of Pittsburgh. This was an earlier shot. This is more finished. That was an awful lot of work. The buildings in the background are actual photographs of the real buildings in Pittsburgh. And I sat and cut out all the windows and basically made a sandwich. I used a piece of what I want to say, the foam core board is the skeleton. I cut it out and then I used aluminum foil for the back of the picture so the light wouldn't show through the photograph. And then a frosted shower curtain to filter the light. And then just a piece of poster board for the back, and you just glue it all together. And of course, before you do that, you run the LEDs up inside. There's about 500 LEDs in this picture right now inside the buildings, what have you, but still a few more to go. There's a shot that was I was in the centerfold of Inscale railroading this picture. This was a art of work here. When I first took the picture, the rail was shiny on this side because it didn't get painted from the inside. So I went along and painted the rail and retook the picture. Another shot of another train coming in an interchange track. And this was on the cover of Inscale Railroading. This is 84 pictures sewed together with a Helicon focus. I don't know if any of you guys are familiar with that or not. But the city of Pittsburgh, from where the camera's sitting, is 26 feet away. So that's why we did it with that. This is my small yard. It's 40 tracks wide. It's 58 feet long total, and it'll hold 3,250 cars. And as you can see, it's pretty jam-packed. A lot of work involved in that. And there's me standing in the middle of it to show you how big this thing really is. And it was basically built by myself. I had no help except for my wife. I got to give her some credit. She actually helped me build the bench work, and then I was on my own from there. But I actually built this layout in a year and a half, believe it or not. And it's just fine tuning it from there, because we moved in this house in 2004. So it's only 17 years old. So like Phil said earlier, I do work fast, and when I get on a project, I stay on it. There's the covers of the magazines I was on, different covers. Oh, there's the, when you get down my stairs, that's what you see. I ran out of room, so I started putting up the staircase. And then another cover. And then that's the cover that I showed you earlier. So it's, and of course, all of you probably have this shot of your first layout. This was my first Inscale layout. It's pretty pathetic, but everybody has to start somewhere, I guess. And that was my layout later on in my parents' house. That would have been about 1979, 1980, somewhere in there, I'm going to say. And then most of you probably do know or don't know, I am a real life locomotive engineer. And I I ran Norfolk Southern's business train for about 7 or 8 years. And this is me inside the cab of the 4270 headed up the Horseshoe Curve. So this was taken by McDonald that did the locomotive magazine. So Greg McDonald, he did the locomotive issues for trains. He rode with us that day. There I am on that. These are Bennett Levin's Pensy E8s out of Philadelphia. And I was taking it to Pittsburgh. And if you see, I'm in the cab running it there. They're a lot of fun. This was a lot of fun to run. This was my helper engines years ago when I was on helper service. It's one of the SD40-2s. The SD40Es they rebuilt from SD50s. SD80 Max, I ran all 30 of them that Conrail had. Of course, they're all retired and gone now. And I did get to run 765, the knuckle plate Berkshire. So there I am in the cab before we left Altoona. So a lot of fun down the road, and enjoyed my railroad career, and I've enjoyed model railroading all my life. I've been doing it forever, ever and ever and ever. And I don't plan on quitting anytime soon. So even when I retire, I'm still going to run steam engines for the East Broadtop, and probably for the Everett Railroad. They run a steam engine on the weekends, and I was invited to do that. So I plan on keeping it going, and my model railroad's out of room. I don't have any more room to add to it anymore. So it's just keep collecting and keep stacking them someplace, I guess. So, but I don't know how much more I can
put an addition on your house.
What's that? Well, I'm out of room for that too. I live on a corner block, and there's just no room to add to it. So I gotta draw the line in the sand somewhere, or the wife's allowed to throw me out at some point. So she won't let me take over the upstairs yet. But
Todd, do you operate your model railroad on a schedule?
No, I don't. I like what guys do, and I participated in a lot of that with schedules and things for guys that were local here. I don't have the time, unfortunately, and we don't have the people around here to do any of that stuff anymore. And we just run trains. We have open houses several times a year here, and I'll get anywhere from 150 to 250 people during an open house day. And we just run trains, and I can run 40 trains by you and you wouldn't see the same train or the same cars twice.
Yeah.
So it's and I look at it as, because I run trains for the real railroad and they keep things kind of on schedule, I just like to run trains and have fun doing it, and guys just kind of can't understand that hey, when you do it for a living every day, coming home and doing it again is like, okay, we can live without that today. But we have a lot of fun. We have our open houses. We have people come from 6 or 7 different states. They drive in and they stay here all day long. We feed everybody. We have a good time. There's no arguments or politics or, any of that kind of stuff goes on. It's just, we run trains and we have fun doing it.
I was really, one of the things that really impressed me was the yard. That's one of the first things I saw, and I forget where I saw it now. But building a model railroad yard that'll hold 3,200 cars, I couldn't imagine that.
It's insane. It actually, when we first did it, there it is there. It was 28 tracks wide. So You can see I still have plenty of aisleway here, and I decided to add to it and make it bigger. And I did a drawing of it, and we come over and I did some measurements, and I thought, and if you see, it's cantilevered to the wall.
Yeah.
It's a freestanding structure. It's 54 inches wide. Okay. And I'm not ashamed to say I weigh over 300 pounds, and I was up on it. and it didn't move or budge at all. So it's pretty strong.
Now, that's just for freight cars, right?
Yeah, freight cars. There's a couple truck trains parked in it. Under the city in Pittsburgh, I have 2 stub tracks underneath the city of Pittsburgh from my Pittsburgh station, and there's 2 Amtrak sitting under there. And I could run an Amtrak train in each direction. The Pennsylvania, we call it, because it runs across the state here from Harrisburg, Ophelia, to Pittsburgh. So.
And that's really your passenger terminal then?
Yeah, it's just that them 2 tracks. And then in this other yard that was back here, it was back here further somewhere here. This one here, oops, went by. This one here, this has been added to too. I pulled the front off the front. I added more tracks to it. There's about 15 tracks or 16 tracks in here now. And in the background, there's a geometry car. There's a Conrail office car special that I run, and another Amtrak, which we call the Broadway Limited, which I've run the Conrail office car. I've run the Broadway Limited. I've run the geometry cars. I've ran all that stuff. I also have a 30-car Ringling Brothers and Barnum and Bailey Circus. It's the red unit, and I've actually ran that in real life too. So, we can run, and I run multiple double stack trains, truck trains, coal trains, road railers, grain trains, and probably have about 18, maybe 20 mixed rates on the layout. And some of them are 100 cars long or better. And that's what a lot of people are amazed by that I run a 100-car train. It's crazy. But
all of your cars, all your locomotives, they are just bought, right? I mean, do you build any of these, or
I have built some, and I've kit bashed some, but most of them, like the Cotto engines and Atlas engines, are just bought engines or just stock. They're DC powered. I'm not DCC. If you look at the left of this photograph, you can see the LEDs lit here with a little DIN connect, the DINs, I guess they're called. And I have a cab control that I plug in there, and I can follow the train around the layout. And the train continues to run as like a DCC would run. But it's all block controlled and everything. And when I have several people here running it, like the open house and stuff, there's some guy monitors the panel, some guy lets trains in the yard and things like that. So it takes 6 or 8 people, keeps them busy at an open house to run it, to keep the trains moving. But no schedules. We run them. If we want to run around 5 times, we do. If we run around one once, that's fine. But it takes 12 minutes for a train to make a complete loop.
Now, did I hear you say that you have some brass models? Do they make
Inscale
brass?
Yeah, I do. I do, in fact, have in this picture here, this is the S1 that Pensy had. It's brass. These centipedes are brass. The T1 here is brass.
Now, who made those?
The T1 was made by New Jersey International, NJ International. This was made back in 1983, and it sold for $400 back then. They only made 75 of them. At one time, I had 3 of them, and guys wanted them, so I sold them to them, but I kept this one. This one here was made by Sunset. It's a beautiful running model, and they only made like 100 of these, if even made that. And the centipedes also, they're very, very hard to find.
Now, are those companies still in business? They still making brass Inscale?
No, Hallmark's gone. Sunset don't make anything as far as I know, unless they make it in HO. Maybe you guys would know that. And New Jersey brass, it's New Jersey International people that make the signals and lights and things like that. They're still in business, but they don't do any of the locomotives or anything like that.
Yeah.
But I probably have 30 brass engines. I have a bunch of diesels and stuff too.
So really the brass days for Inscale, they're behind us.
They're behind us, yeah, because if you look at this one below, this is a Broadway Limited models. They're making Inscale, the M1, the T1 is Broadway Limited. These are Broadway Limited, the centipedes. Very, very nice running models. I mean, they run very well. I took the DCC out of them, so because I run an analog, but they still run very well. This is, believe it or not, this K4 is a Bachmann. and it runs very, very, very well.
Huh.
And that's why these plastic companies are they're just blowing the brass out of the water. I mean, I haven't seen a new brass engine come out in probably 10, 15 years, maybe longer.
You do anything special to your couplers or wheels?
I use all Micro Trains couplers and wheels. That's what I use. Everything on the layout is Micro Trains, and it's they're Durlin wheels. Are not metal. They run and they track very, very well. I've run trains already for hours when we had open houses and visitors here, and never have a problem at all. No derailments, no issues. My track is code 80. A lot of guys are into code 55. Code 55 is very finicky, and you better have a smooth surface when you do it. And anybody, like I know you guys probably do a lot of the fine modeling, because looking at the guys that were doing the things here, your track work's key to everything. If it's not good track work, the trains aren't going to work. If you don't have it leveled up and smooth, they're going to give you problems. And in Inscale, if you're going to use fine track, and even me with the code 80, I went and I bought interior grade 1/2-inch plywood. It's smooth, it's clear, it's clean, and and I have a controlled room down here, so I don't have any buckling or any water issues or anything like that. And none of my joints are soldered. I stagger my joints, and the way I position everything, I don't solder anything, and I have, in 17 years, I haven't had a problem. The trains still run just absolutely perfect.
What about switches? What switches do you use?
I use, on the main lines, the older Roco switches that they made for Atlas. They were made back in the 70s. They work very well. I use all number 6s there. And then in the yards, I'm using the Picos. And I do have Picos on the main too. If I'm going into a siding or something like that, I'll put a Pico switch in there. And they work very well. The only problem with the Picos are, in Inscale, they're made for wide flanges for the European models. So you have to shim the guide rail on the outside, or the Micro Trains wheels will slip over and catch the frog, and they'll derail.
Mm-hmm.
And just that little shim, it don't take much, a couple thousand is all it takes, and you glue it in there, and problem solved. But the problem is some of the older stuff, like the Lone Star, I can't run it because they want to derail on them shims. They want to catch them shims and derail because the wheels are so bulky on them. And I run stuff out of the case. I mean, I'll run my Pasture Trains. I'll run the older stuff just to get it out and do it, And
you got some beautiful passenger trains I saw in your display. Which one's your favorite?
That's really a hard one for me. Like, these are the old Arnold stuff. Nothing's in scale. There's nothing scaled about it. I really love those. Probably the foreign stuff. Get to that here. The TGVs, these ones in the bottom, I really, really love those. They run extremely well. As for the prototype, for our American prototype stuff, I don't know if I have any shots. Under the layout on the one side, there. These are all American prototype trains here, and I have both Broadway Limiteds. I have the New York Central 20th Century, the City of Los Angeles, the UP. I have the Amtrak trains. I have the Lgp Tank. All the main passenger trains that they made, I have them. I have them all. But because I love them all. I can't decipher just one. When you're out of control like me, it's like, my buddy comes over once in a while and we sit down here, well, I like this and I like that. I'm like, we just like it all, Steve. Just say you like it all. Trains are trains, and it is what it is. And I've been doing this. I've been in Inscale since 1975. And I educated myself very well to learn what things are worth and what things are. And I've had it all at one time or another. I have 27,000 pieces. So it's, if it was made, I touched it at one time or another. So,
What
but
about,
I just really enjoy it.
you said at one point that you collect, I forget who the manufacturer was, up until 95, and then they started duplicating numbers and you stopped.
That was Atlas. That was
Yeah.
yeah,
Do
that's
you, do you,
that's
do
these
you,
guys.
do you still collect Atlas now, or?
Yes, when they come out, like right now, they come out with these. If you look at these cars at the bottom of this picture here, they're the billboard reefers. I love these things, the beer cars, the billboards and stuff.
Yeah.
Even though I run modern stuff and I still love these cars, and they're coming out with a bunch more of them. And if they come out with new road names, I buy them.
Yeah.
You know, because it's I want to keep the collection going. But when they come out with duplicates of the same car with different numbers, it gets to a point where how many can you have?
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of insane. But in this picture here, like these big tank cars, these things were made back in the early 70s, as were these, and they only made 4 road names in these cars for some odd reason. They never went any further. If you look, there's 4 tank cars, 4 high cubes, 4 cattle cars, 4 of these cement cylinder cars, the oxygen cylinder cars, or whatever they are, the pickle cars or the vinegar cars, I guess they are. They made 4 road names. That's all they made. You know, whether there was more road names than that, I don't know, but you know, that's what they did. And a lot of people have to remember too that these cars were made in Austria by a guy that's looking at a blueprint or a picture doing a mold backwards, and they come out pretty decent. I mean, they're pretty prototypically correct, you know, and they're very nice cars, but they're sought after pretty much. I mean, these are go like this tank car here. I've seen it go for $150. I mean, because it's the prototypically correct one. These are Fubies. They never existed. But this GATX is prototypically correct. And they're very highly sought after cars if you can find them in decent shape. And it's but that's one here. And these are all the box cars here, the 40 footers and the 50 footers. And you can see, like, here's the state of Maine. See, I got carried away with them. They're all different numbers, but you know, it comes to a point where, okay, you got to quit somewhere, you know. So because it's
what about your engines? Do you do anything special for the to make sure that you've got good connectivity to the power?
Nope, nothing special at all. But like I said, my track is all Atlas Code 80 Flex. I stagger my joints that the rail joiner rests on the top of the tie that I cut off a little. I cut the top of the ties off a little bit, the spikes, so to speak. And I slide the rail through there, and that kind of pinches it. All my wire and my solder joints are underneath. You can't find no wires or solder joints sticking out anywhere. Everything's underneath the rail or underneath the rail joiner. And we run trains here for hours, you know, and they're 100 cars long and no issues at all. Before an open house, I will tell you that I clean and lube every locomotive that we're going to run. So when somebody comes and says, I want to see that train run, we can run it. There's no excuse saying, well, I can't run it because the trains are dirty. Nope, we don't do that. And I dry clean my track. I don't use any liquids on the track. When you have 3,000 plus cars on the layout, all those wheels have dirt on them. So if you put liquid on the track and you're on the train through it, all that dirt's coming off. The reason I know this, I did that for experience. So no more of that. We dry clean the track really good the night before. And
How do you do that? How do you do that, Todd?
I have the Roco track cleaning cars that have just a dry pad underneath them.
Okay.
And I put 3 of them with a couple engines, and I put them out in the main line and just turn them loose. And then I go to my interlockings with a bright boy, and I'll clean like the frogs, and they collect dirt too. So you take a little screwdriver or a little penknife or something, and you clean them out, and the frogs and stuff, and make sure the joints are clean, because sometimes you don't cross trains over and they get dirt on the points, and then they don't want to throw. When you go to throw them at the panel, they don't throw. So you got to make sure that's all clean. We check everything the night before, make sure all the stuff's working, and you know, so we don't have failures. That's the main thing. But I imagine if I ran this thing on a monthly basis and had people here, it would probably be a lot better. But you know, I just don't have that. I don't have the people to do that. So
How do you clean your yard?
Well, again, when I pull a train off the track, I run them track cleaning cars back and forth. Because I take every train off the track. Pull every train out of the yard, clean the engines, run the train around, inspect all the cars to make sure the couplers are all in place and everything's good. And while that train's out running, I run a track cleaning car back and forth on those tracks that I can't reach. Because
Gotcha.
obviously I can't reach 54 inches deep. That's impossible.
Yes.
And when there's 800 or 900 cars sitting in front of you, you don't want to tip anything over because that's a disaster. So, but
what do you use for switch control?
I actually use the GHP push buttons. If you're familiar with those, I'm sure you guys are. They're older. Yeah. They're older than dirt. I use them and they work very well. I modified mine a little bit to be a little stronger, so when you push them, they work well. But that's what I use. And I use diode matrix and stuff for the yard. One track, one button, and it throws all the switches down the ladder for you. You don't have to sit there and think, which I have to throw. If you want to come off of track 8, you push button 8 and bang, there it is, you know. So it works very, very well. And I think there was maybe one shot. There's one of the control panels back there at Pittsburgh.
Okay.
See the LEDs lit there. I have 4 power packs. I have a green, red, blue, and yellow power pack. So you use rotary controls to select what track, what power pack. So you can route a train out of the yard on yellow, and you can ride it right onto the main, and you give the guy the yellow power pack and say, here, go have at it. And he can follow his train all the way around the left by unplugging the controller and plug it into another spot around the left. Took a lot of wire to do it, but I don't have, and I know the DCC guys, I've been around a lot of different layouts and a lot of DCC stuff, and I've seen some really good work in DCC layouts, believe me. And I've seen some that were very poor because the layout was switched over to DCC and wasn't wired for it. And therefore it loses its ability to work the way it should, in my opinion, of course, but my opinion don't matter to a lot of people. But I use analog. I have no issues with my trains. They run perfect, and guys bring stuff to run, and they're not afraid to run on here because it's going to work. And I try to, like I said, I try to keep my track as clean as I can, but I really have a clean room down here. It's very, very clean. I don't get a lot of dust, a lot of dirt. So it's air conditioned and heated. Whatever the upstairs is, that's what the downstairs is.
What's the future of Inscale?
I think at some point in its life, it will overtake HO, in my honest opinion, because let's face it, people are getting smaller houses. They're not building bigger houses. Inscale's working, the engines work so well. I mean, just so good. The Kato engines and Atlas engines, and even the Fox Valley, I have to give plugs to. The Intermountain engines work pretty well. The Bachmann engines, the new ones, are working very well. The Broadway Limited stuff works very well. So, all the manufacturers coming out with this stuff, it's just this scale models. They've been making some nice stuff, man, turbines and things like that, and they're absolutely unbelievably gorgeous, and they run extremely well. And even Athearn's getting heavy into the Inscale business now. And I got a lot of Athearn engines, and they work very well. They're a little noisy, but they do run and they do pull very well. But
what about from a scenery standpoint, structure standpoint, that kind of thing? Where's Inscale?
Well, I think it's right up there with HO. I really do. I think it's pretty close to HO. A lot of my structures on here are kit bashed. I mean, like the steel mill, for instance, this building is 100% Walthers, no modifications to it. It was a very nice kit to build, a lot of parts. I have no issues with that. And my city buildings, like these buildings here, A lot of these buildings are some of the old Roco kits and stuff like that, and some of these are new. The Walthers stuff here, it's all weathered and done up and stuff, and it's very nice stuff. And even Woodland Scenics is coming out with a lot of buildings now that are very nice. I bought a few of those, and they got interiors in them. You hook the lights up to them, you're done. It kind of takes the fun out of modeling, but I mean, I know you guys on here looking at the presentations today, you like to build things, and a couple of friends of mine are the same way. I have a friend that has an HO layout that's beautiful, and he scratch builds a lot of things. A lot of his buildings are kit bashed or scratch built. I don't have the time to do that. I'm going to get up at 4:30 in the morning, and I'm going to drive 70 miles west Altoona to run a train all day long. Then come back home. By the time you come back home and eat supper, it's time to unwind and go back to bed and do it again tomorrow. So and then my weekends are kind of, trying to catch up on other things, mow the grass and things like that. But again, I'm a one-man gang here. I have a few friends that come around, and we enjoy running trains, and that's probably about it at that point. But
again, I'm looking at this picture right now of your city. That's absolutely beautiful. And the way that you handled the photography of the buildings and lit the buildings and constructed them and so forth, I think that's just, a lot of people in different scales could do the same kind of thing.
Well,
it's something that I haven't heard before.
Well, after I did this with the buildings, about 6 or 8 months, maybe a year after I did this, there's a guy in Model Railroader featured an HO layout, did the exact same thing I did, using basically my same techniques. And no problem with it. I mean, I'm not mad about it or anything like that, because it's great that I get to share this. And if other guys like to do it, it's great. And a friend of mine that when you come over here a lot, he says, I think you're doing something you're not going to be able to achieve. So I did the U.S. Steel building first, this big black building here that's UPMC building now. I did it first, and it come out rather well. So I thought, okay, let's do the rest of them. And they all come out pretty decent. And this is basically what I see when I go into downtown Pittsburgh on my helper. When I'm coming out of the east side of Pittsburgh, these are the buildings and how they're positioned and what I see.
Well, it's a beautiful scene. It really is. I'd love for you to come back if you get a chance and actually build one of these on the show for us and show us really what's involved in trying to do one of these buildings, because I do think that a lot of people could use this kind of technique.
Yeah, if you want to model something prototypically that you're doing on your layout and you don't have room for it, these things are about, I gotta say, 3/8 of an inch thick, something like that. They're not quite a 1/2 inch thick, but they look very three-dimensional, and you look at it, it looks like they're almost freestanding structures, but they're not. But I did build a couple when I did this for the magazine and presented it to the magazine. I actually built one for him, and I put it in the envelope with the CDs. When I sent it out to him and he got the building, and he goes, "This is going on my layout. This is really cool," because I made him one. Yeah. When I did an article and showcase, I made a small showcase and sent it to him, and he's like, "What's he give me, a Kato set?" Yeah, it was up as a little showcase. He freaked out. He's like, "This is awesome." To give you an idea of how to build. I mean, anybody can build showcases. They're very easy to do. You'll need basically a table saw. A radial arm saw helps, but a table saw is all you really need.
Yeah.
And but it's it's been a lot of fun, a lot of experience, and I'm the type of guy, I don't care how prototypically correct it is, because I see the prototype every day. And Lynn Westcott, I think it was Lynn Westcott or Gordon Odegaard, said, if it looks good enough. And my art teacher always told me, stand back about 6 or 8 feet, and if it looks good from that distance, you've achieved your goal. And that's how paintings look. If you look at a lot of paintings, you get up close to them, they're like, this looks really bad. And you stand back about 6 feet, it's like, wow, that's pretty spectacular. So, and that's why I liked Inscale, because it did take up a lot of space, and you could do big scenes with little trains. To duplicate this in HO, you would have a 70 by, 100-foot layout to do it in HO. And obviously I don't have that kind of space, but you know, but the good enough thing. And I've never, ever in my life criticized anybody else's work, because everybody has a different ability. And I feel I'm in the middle. I'm not the best. I've seen some of the best here tonight, you know, looking at the building of the cars and things. And it's what guys like to do and enjoy doing. And I admire them very much. My buddy's the same way. He does all these scratch built cars and the Campbell kits and stuff. When he showed the Campbell kit, I remember them because when I was a kid, I worked at a hobby shop. When I was 12 years old, I helped the guy at the hobby shop, and I remember those kits. And I'd open them up, look at them, and put the lid back on and put it back on the shelf. It's like, there ain't no way I'm even going to tackle something like that, you know. But I've seen guys do it, and they're beautiful, and you know, that's just awesome, you know, to see guys do the modeling work. And but I try my best and try to present it the best way I can, you know. But
well, you give some thought to it, because I'd really love for you to come back on the show and actually
okay.
build one of them. I really think a lot of people would be interested to see really how you're doing this, and how you get the shower curtain, how you put all of those pieces together and create that building, because that is one beautiful scene. It really is.
Thank you. Yeah, it was a thought process. And they're like, how am I going to filter the light through the windows, you know?
Yeah.
And I was taking a shower in the shower, and I looked at the shower curtain. I'm like, my wife's name's Becky. I said, Becky, you have any more shower curtains handy? Yeah, why? I said, I need one. So she gets it out and she gives it to me. I rip it apart and I start cutting. She goes, what are you doing? I said, I got an idea. And when I put it on the back and it filtered the light, I'm like, perfect. Here it is. It works just great. You know, and the LEDs are just, and I did an article for the magazine for Kirk Ready when I did this scene. And I specifically said LEDs. Do not use grain of wheat bulbs or light bulbs, because you will have the fire department there after a bit, because you're inside of paper. You know, and I know guys will probably maybe try that, but LEDs is just a great invention.
Hey, Todd, my name is Clark Kooning, and I'm a Inscaler from way back like you. Your pictures when you were younger, I think I have those exact pictures, except for I was in a crawl space of a back split.
Oh my.
But I had the whole cross space. Fantastic looking railroad. Now, do you use all Microtrains couplers? Do you body mount them, or just strictly?
No, I actually have both.
Okay.
My philosophy is, when you buy a car, you track it first. If it's got Microtrains couplers and trucks on it, I don't bother with anything.
Right.
Other manufacturers and stuff, if the car works and it doesn't give me any problems, I leave it alone.
Right.
But there are some things, and I don't want to bash anybody, but there are some manufacturers or trucks just aren't as good as Microtrains. And I know I'm going to have failures.
Yeah, totally agree.
I don't like failures. So Microtrains, in my opinion, are the best. And I change everything over to them.
Yeah,
I've tested wheels for Microtrains. I've tested couplers for them. I've tested new couplers for Atlas that they're going to put on their cars. And they're very well. They're very Microtrain similar.
Yeah.
And they work very well. I was very, very surprised at them.
Yeah. Do you dabble anything with the T-Track?
No, I don't. I'm not really involved in any clubs because there's nobody around here.
Okay.
I'm so far away. There was an N-Track club here, and several of the members died, and then they just dismantled and never got back together.
Yeah, so. I prefer actually the T-Track stuff now, because I think N-Track has kind of outlived its life, to be honest.
Well, yeah, I mean, they tried it when we have a show here. It's the Inscale weekend here. They haven't had it for a few years because of the COVID and space problems, but I like what he does. Every N-Track group comes and they set their own layout up.
Right.
When you go to these big conventions, they try to break the record. We're going to be the largest N-Track layout in the world.
Yes.
And nothing works because everybody's things are different. And it's so big, they have electrical problems. when you go to Mike's show, all the guys bring their stuff. Some of the modules and most of the modules are spectacular.
Yeah.
And they're really, and they run trains. You see trains running on them because they're smaller.
Yeah.
You know,
hey, what do you think the Burpo beer car is worth from Micro Trains?
Oh, about 80 to 100 bucks.
I was hoping it was more, but
I actually have 3 of them.
Yeah.
And I actually paid 65 for one of them because I didn't have it. And then I found 2 more. I bought one for $10, brand new in the box.
I had 3, and a guy asked me if he could see it. I was actually running one, and the guy actually seen it, and he swapped me out with the second version of it.
Yep, I know. I'm very familiar with it. There's actually several versions of it. Inscale enthusiast did some Guzzlet beer things with the same Man of Extinction on it, which is pretty cool. But
yeah, are you a twofer? Do you buy one Micro Train for the shelf and one for the layout, or?
Sometimes if it's a modern car or it's a graffiti collector car, I'll buy both. I'll buy 2, one for layout, one for the shelf. Yeah,
right.
I do that. But I try not to duplicate too much because I'm out of room. I mean, when you have 3,400 cars on your layout, it's most people don't have 3,300 cars, and but it's I don't drink, I don't smoke, I don't chew, I don't go hunting and fishing. I make the wife happy, and then I make me happy.
Well, I'm with you, except for one about the fishing part, but that's okay.
Well, again, I used to fish and hunt when my dad was living. When he got sick, and then we couldn't go anymore, I kind of just lost interest in that. So
yeah. All right. Well, fantastic layout and very well done. And I try. There's a group, sort of Chicago, well, I should say Chicago, Milwaukee area called Modu Track, and Bill Denton.
I've heard of that. Yeah, but Bill Denton, yes, I'm friends with him on Facebook, and I've chatted with him quite a few times. Yeah.
I've run on their layout, and one of their slogans is "better modeling through peer pressure."
That could be very true, because I have seen some of the most spectacular layouts in my life over my years, and believe me, mine's not near what theirs are, in my opinion.
Oh, no, you don't have to compare your layout. It's fantastic.
I certainly appreciate that.
And I mean, I've run with those guys. I'm in Northern Ontario, but I have met all those Motrack guy or Modutrack guys for years, and know our buddy at Fox Valley and so forth. So
Matt.
Matt's a great guy.
He is a great, fantastic guy.
Yeah.
We sat together at the conventions and and what have you, because I have all his modern cars. I have all his high-cube box cars on the layout.
Yeah.
And quite a few of his engines.
Hey, I didn't hear you say you had the Rapido Canadian.
The Rapido, no, I do not. Yet.
All right. I have some connections if you want to give me a show.
Okay.
But no, excellent layouts. And I think one of the things that people like Jim was kind of surprised, but I think people have to give Inscale a good look to what it is today. It's not what you thought it was in 1968.
No. Are you familiar with the Toy Train Operator Society?
Yes.
Okay. We had them here. It's been probably 10 years or so. They came here in a bus. They were in Altoona. They had a convention in Altoona, and they wanted to come to see the layout. And we were people all over the United States, and there was like 40 of them. And the one guy came down the steps and looked, and he goes, "Oh, this is the little stuff." And then he looked at me and kind of like put his foot in his mouth. I said, "Just give it a chance."
Yeah.
They were supposed to be here an hour. I had to kick them out after 2.5 hours because they had to go somewhere else and they weren't going there.
Yeah.
So
people really have to good Inscale. That is, as you thoroughly said, and I totally agree. You have to have the best structure,
Yeah,
and then your track work, and then your track work.
The best foundation is what I always said.
That's
good
right.
Wood, good plywood, a good base.
Yeah.
You don't want to be in a damp area with this stuff because
No.
it will bend and warp and it will give you problems.
Yeah.
Like I said, nothing on my layout is soldered. None of my joints are soldered. Everything is just laying there loose. Because I have a controlled temperature, it's the same temperature just about within a few degrees of each other all the time. I don't have an issue with expansion, contraction, and anything, buckling on me.
Yeah. But I think also too that and after I mention this, I'll let you talk, and then Jim, you can take over. One of the things that people, when they say I'm going to build a model railroad, I know the first one all the time is more of a trial.
Mm-hmm.
But when you come to building that railroad, you have to do, like you say, the foundation, the track work, and put the effort into the surroundings as well.
Yeah, like this.
Hey, I've been there, buddy. I know this guy.
It's a start. That's all I could say. It was a start.
Yeah, but you know what? As you progress through the hobby, you learn all this.
This here board was part of this here layout here was part of another O-gauge layout. It was my grandfather's O-gauge layout is what it was. That's what this plywood's off of, and he cut it for me to put this on it.
Right.
And it's just 2x4s nailed into some structure underneath it, and there it stands. So, but
no, excellent. And if honestly,
and then this crazy thing here, I just kept adding to it and doing all kinds of goofy stuff, and then it's just.
Well, not all of us get to play on the real stuff, though.
Well, that's a whole other thing. Being able to do this, it's absolutely a dream come true for any model railroad or anybody that likes trains.
Yeah.
And to run the president around the railroad, and I mean, this was my train. I had this train for several years, and I was the one running it.
Right.
And we had a lot of fun doing it. And then anytime that Bennett brought his engines up to run, there I was headed to Pittsburgh on it, and
right.
It was just so much fun to be in something that was built in the 1950s, still running in the 2000s, late 2000s,
Yeah.
So it was an honor and a privilege to do that, and to do things that I never thought when I was growing up I'd ever be doing this. It's what I wanted to do, and then have this experience to run the steam engines. It's like, if you had told me this 40 years ago, I told you you're crazy. But I did it, and it's been a lot of fun.
Hey, go back to that one picture. Are you still under warranty?
No. Those engines are gone, unfortunately. They sold them all. They wore out. They wore their welcome out, and they sold them all. I remember when these were new. I was pretty new in the railroad, and the first one come out of the shop at Juniata, and we stopped, and I went over and took pictures of it.
Yeah, neat.
We left Altoona, so.
All right, very good. Well, thank you very much for sharing, and I hope you come back. And Jim, go ahead.
Todd, let me ask you a question.
Yes.
I keep hearing about all these models that are being produced in Inscale in Japan.
Mm-hmm.
Are they higher quality? I mean,
yes.
Where?
Yes, anything made under the Kato name, and that's Kato, not Kato. It's Kato. He will correct you if you meet him in person. His stuff is absolutely the top of the line in Inscale. They make all of the bullet trains that run in Japan. They make a lot of they make some European things. They make the TGVs. They make those, and they're just absolutely the best quality that you will find anywhere. The Atlas stuff that's being made in China is very good. It's very good. But Cotto's just that much better. It's like a Microtrains car. The Microtrains car is just that much better than the rest of the pack. You know, the cars are very well quality made. You put them on the track, they run. You don't do anything with them. They work. Now they're not cheap, but nothing's getting cheap anymore. But I would sooner have 10 good running Cotto engines than 25 poorly running engines, you know, any day of the week.
Yeah.
So, and the same way with cars. If you get 10 Cotto engines and 50 Microtrains cars, you're going to be happy. And if your track's laid correctly and laid good, you're going to be a happy model railroad. You know, and
so really what I'm taking away from this is that Inscale today is just as trouble-free as O-Scale is.
Yes, pretty much so. It really, really is. And again, the foundation, like Clark said, the foundation is what you have to have. If you have a good foundation and a good roadbed, I see guys using particle board, you know, the wafer board that some people call it.
Yeah.
Not a good, if you're doing O gauge or S gauge, you can get away with it. HO, maybe. N-scale, no way. You're fooling yourself. And because the wafer board is so uneven, unless you run it through a mill or you sand it, or you put putty on it to keep everything level, it's just, you're just wasting your time.
Yeah.
Go buy a good indoor grade piece of furniture plywood and mount your stuff on, and you will be a very, very happy model railroad. You know, I mean, the sheets of plywood I bought back 17 years ago were $45 a piece, and I bought 12 sheets of it, you know, because I wanted something that's going to work. And as a result, I have zero issues 17 years later. And that's what really it's all about.
Well, I'll tell you, hearing you talk and seeing your model railroad has convinced me. I tried Inscale back in the early 60s, mid 60s, and I had all kinds of operating problems, and I just gave up. So when I saw a picture of your yard, that's the first picture of your railroad I saw. I thought, I have got to talk to this man. I've got to find out what is so great about Inscale today that he is creating this level of modeling in Inscale. Because, and I think it's fascinating. I really do. And I can't thank you enough for being here tonight. Does anybody else
appreciate the invite?
Does anybody else have any questions for Todd?
Hey, I have a comment, Todd. I've been in Inscale probably about as long as you have. And I'm kind of amazed at what you can accomplish and how quick you can accomplish it. I have a friend that came to see your layout not too long ago by the name of Roy Smith. I think probably you remember. Well, Roy and I were high school classmates and as well as at college at Penn State. And
wow,
we kind of got together a little bit and collaborated on his layout. I actually, if you've ever seen it, you probably have. His station building there is one that I made for him.
Really?
Using cardstock and paper.
Is that the Green River Station?
Yeah, that's the Green River Station.
Fantastic structure.
And I made it from scratch, basically using a lot of the same techniques that I demonstrated on this show a couple months ago. And it turned out very nice. But one of these days, I'd like to come down and see your layout.
Well, you're certainly welcome. The welcome mat is open for anybody that wants to come. We don't turn anybody away. And what you see here in this picture is my workbench is a fold-up table underneath the layout because I have no place to do that. So I try to keep it cleaned up all the time because I don't know who's going to show up.
Yeah.
And now that I've become friends with the people, these broad top, they're bringing people here now. We toured the Standard Steel back in 2011. When I hosted the Inscale convention here in 2011, the Hershey convention, we had about 180 people come here on the buses. And we had a lot of fun with that. Well, then when the Japanese bought the Standard Steel here, they found out about it. They wanted to come and see it. So when the owners of the Standard, the Sumitomo Heavy Industries comes in, they always make it a point to stop by. So I got to keep things cleaned up all the time because I just don't know who's going to show up.
You're in Burnham, you're off of a 322.
320. I'm a mile and a third off of 322 off the 322 exit at Burnham. Yes.
All right. Yeah, right now I live in Western New York State, out, well, pretty close to Erie, not too far from Erie.
Okay.
Probably take me about 4 hours drive, I expect.
Yeah, probably 3.5 to 4. You come down come across 80 and then come down from State College. Yeah.
But one of these years, before I get too old to even go anywhere, I'm going to come down and take a look.
Well, you're certainly welcome to do so. If you would like to, anytime you want to contact me, either through Facebook or email or whatever, you're welcome to do so. And I know Roy's coming back at some point. You know, he's been here twice. And
well, with him living in Panama, I think it's going to be kind of tough.
Yeah, it's everything shut down right now with the COVID stuff. But when he gets back to see his mother, he said, "I'm coming." So I'm sure he'll be here. So
he typically comes to the States about twice a year.
Yeah.
But the COVID pandemic really put kind of a kibosh to it.
Yes. Well, this has actually been a lot of fun. I've enjoyed this.
Well, I'm glad you have, and I really do want to get you to come back and show us how to do your building structures, because I am fascinated by that. I think that is a beautiful scene you've created.
Innovation does a lot of things. If you look at these 2 tanks here, I needed 2 tanks to look like the ones at Enola, the real Enola yard at Harrisburg. I looked everywhere. I looked different things. Nothing matched. So one day I was sitting there looking at my Lgp car, my tank car, and I held it up. I thought, what if I cut this thing in half and I could make 2 tanks? So when I went to Timonium to the train meet in Baltimore, a friend of mine was down there. He had a junk one with parts missing. He wanted like $10 for it. I said, I'll buy this. He goes, it's got parts missing. I don't care. I'm not using it for a tank car anyway. I actually did an article for Kirk Reddy on this. I took the pictures as I was doing it and showed what I did. And that's an Lgp tank car, 2 pieces upside down to make 2 tanks. And I just made my own Conrail decals for on it. And it come out pretty decent. It actually looks pretty good.
Looks good to me, I'll tell you.
Yeah. So, because the tanks at Enola were big. They were big tanks. So.
All right.
Right here's an Athearn big boy set in here. We pulled 145 cars with that around the layout.
Jeez.
Yeah. So that's how good this stuff. That's an Athearn big boy is what it is, and it's superb model.
Well, I'm gonna do our best I can to get you back and show us how to do those structures. So I'm gonna send you an email. We'll work out a time for you to come back, because I really have enjoyed this, and I hope other people have, and most of all, I hope people see what's possible and what's capable of being able to be achieved right now in Inscale. Yeah. Because I'm amazed. It's just a totally different kind of situation than I remember back in the 60s when I was trying to get involved with it.
Well, it's like you go back to this, well, like this case here. This is the torpedo stuff. This is what you dealt with back in the 60s.
Yeah.
You know, it was Rapido, and then
and it was tough modeling. And for me, it was tough.
And that stuff, there's nothing in this picture except for these cars right here that are prototypically correct.
Yeah.
Everything else in this picture, these box cars, the engines themselves are out of scale. They don't run very well. European cars with American prototype names on them. And some of these are very rare. They're very hard to find. You don't find them.
Yeah.
And then even some of these engines, like the Canadian National and the Canadian Pacific isn't in this picture. This is an older picture, but those things are super, super, super hard to find. And it's like back here in this.
Well, I dare say a lot of people like me. I used to throw the stuff away. When I got out of Inscale, I didn't try to sell it. I just threw it away.
Yeah, well, that's what happened to a lot of things, and because of it, now people are collecting. It's rare, like the Canadian Pacific engine and this Canadian National engine, and this is Lone Star. These engines are very, very, very hard to find. And if you find one in mint condition, these are in fair condition. They're not mint. I have a couple dummies that are actually in mint condition that are worth more than the powered, but you'll pay $700-800 for one of these if you want it in mint condition. It's insane. It's just, and these little trucks like the orange and green one, common.
If you're showing pictures, we're not actually seeing them, are we?
Yeah.
I hope so.
Yeah, you can see them here.
I'm seeing them from Australia.
Yeah.
I'm not. That's odd. Okay.
Todd, John Garrity, Australia.
Yes.
Lone Star. Are they the rubber band drives?
Yes,
Lone
they
Star?
are. Yes,
Yep.
they're rubber band drives. They only make 2 locomotives with rubber band. Well, they make several, but they make 2 American models. The F unit you see here, and they also made a steam engine, which is right here with the tenders right here at the top. And they actually the tender itself is driven rubber band pushing the steam locomotive along. These steam locomotives here, every one of these are different. You may not think so, but there's one with black bottom, black wheels, black bottom, red wheels, red bottom, black wheels, red bottom, red wheels. One has a number, one has a crest on it from England. But these were eventually made push toys, and they were sold in packages for push toys, and they sold for like 15-20 cents.
Yeah, I had the blue steam loco as a push toy.
Yeah. Okay. Yes. That there. I didn't have a picture of that on here, but they did do a 7mm push toy earlier. But you had this one here, or was it the early? Or was it an English version? They did a couple English versions of push toys in the steam locomotives and the 7mm with the metal track.
To be honest, I thought it looked more like a Pensy K4, but rather than
it would have been pretty close to Pensy K4. You are correct. Yeah. It was probably the Princess engine that they had over there in England.
Yeah,
and it was blue. I have all the. I don't have a picture of that on here, but I do have all of those too. I'm only missing, that I know of in the world, 3 pieces of Lone Star. And the only reason I know that is the guy that wrote the book on Lone Star from the Netherlands was here in my basement. And we went through his book and we found out I'm only missing 3 pieces out of the whole book.
You've done
and
very
those 3
well.
pieces will probably cost me as much as the rest of the collection's worth.
Yeah, well, I had the bridge and the set of bridge ramps as well.
Yes. That's, I think I have a picture of that right here.
Yep, that's them.
There's your bridges, and they were die cast, and the little interlocking towers, and they also, Montgomery Ward, they made what's called a Gulliver County series things, and the buildings were made of rubber. They were actually vulcanized rubber, and you had to put them in the oven on low heat to get them to, like, the base to flatten out, so they laid flat. Very, 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 very poor buildings, but I have the collection of those too. I actually have a coffee table in a living room that has a layout in it. I was going to put a picture in here and I didn't, but I'm going to do a Lone Star layout in that.
I think I had the signal box as well.
Yeah, these are. If you notice, this one doesn't have white around the windows. This one does. And then these signals, one's a distant signal, one's a home signal.
Yes.
And then the little picket fences and the crossing gates and the people and stuff. I have a platform to this too that has lights on it. That's kind of rare, but I just built this little shadow box just to kind of put this stuff in to give people an idea of what's available, what was there.
Yeah. Well, thanks very much for bringing back some memories.
Absolutely. I'm glad you appreciated it and enjoyed it.
Yep. Thank you.
Well, Todd, thank you so much for being here this night. I can't thank you enough. It's really been exciting for me.
Good.
And I really do appreciate it.
I'm glad that you did enjoy it, and I hope everybody else did too. And I'll try to get back with you, and I'll put one of these buildings together for you.
That's fantastic. I'll be in touch.
Okay. Sounds good.
Well,